Om Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarvadharmaswarupine avataravarishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha Sudhismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram. We were discussing this Purusha Suktam, and as I mentioned, there are two versions that we are dealing with. The one, primarily the version that is found in the Rigveda Samhita, that is the 90th Suktam, Suktam number 90 of the 10th mandala. And of course, we are also referring to the Yajurveda version that is found in the Taittiriya Aranyaka. So we were discussing the fifth mantra we completed. We are going to discuss the sixth mantra today. Of course, the sixth mantra. Yat Purushena Habisha Deva Yajnam Atanyuda Vasanto Asyasid Ajyam Grishma Itma Sharat Habihi. This is the sixth mantra. We just dealt with this, but we are going to do it more elaborately today. So the subject is yajna. Yajna, I want to remind you, yajna means a Vedic ritual, which is also a symbol of sanctity and sacredness, which involves sacrifice, renunciation, meditation, going deeper into our own real self. This is the meaning of yajna. There's got different interpretations, but the particular interpretation that we are keeping in mind today, during this discussion, is the definition found in Katyayana's interpretative work, Sutra Vyakhya, that is yajna vai seshtatamam karma. It is a sacred, sanctified, meditative ritual which involves renunciation, self-abnegation, unselfishness, desirelessness, a sense of sanctity and sacredness. Now, when we talk about yajna, I mentioned this earlier, but we should keep that in mind. Yajna is a term used in the ordinary, in the conventional sense. Yajna means a ritual, and there are different types of rituals. Yajnas in the Vedic tradition, they are called Sapta Havir Yajnaha and Sapta Soma Yajnaha. Sapta Havir Yajna is Ajnadhanam, Agnihotram, Deshapurnamasam, Agrayanam, Chaturmasyam, Niruddha Pasubandhan, Sautramani. And Sapta Soma Yajna, Agnishtomam, Atyaknishtomam, Ukthyam, Shodashi, Vachibeyam, Adiratram, Apnoyama. Of course, in the commentary, sometimes you find only a few mentioned. Agnishtoma, Aptoyama, Uktya, Shodashi, Adiratra, Vachapeya, and sometimes called Brihaspati. Okay, this is a subject. So, what does yajna involve? Yajna involves a number of Vedic scholars, Vedic priests, coming together and behind a burning fire, they start a fire and they offer many things into this fire. So what do they offer? They offer sometimes, what we call in Indian language, ghee or clarified butter, cooked food grains, barley, rice, wheat, and what we call yogurt, tea, all these are offered. And while offering, they mention one mantra. The central theme of the mantra is, it is for this Supreme Lord, not for me. That's the idea behind Indraya idam namama. All these are for you, O Lord. Deity is invoked, and all these things are offered in the fire. And the fire is a carrier. The fire is the messenger. Agni, fire, in Vedic language is Agni, and Agni is the name of a deity in ancient Vedic religion and also in the Zoroastrian religion. Agni, symbolic of light, is called Yajñavahaka means. So the first mantra, the first rik in the Rig Veda Samhita, the beginning of it, Agni Mele Purohidam, Yajñasya Deva Murticham, Hotaram, Vritnathatamam. So Agni Ile means is an invocation, praise, offering to the Agni Deva, Agni, the fire god. And Purohidam actually means Yajñavahaka, that is Sayanacharya's own commentary, and elsewhere commentative literature you find. Agni is the messenger who takes your offerings to all these different deities. Now, the whole symbolism of Yajna is now used in Purusha Suktam to explain this mysterious process of creation, the empirical world, and also the all-pervading divine transcendental reality. That's at the beginning itself. We discussed this, that is Purusha evedam sarvam yadbhudam yaccha bhavyam udamurdatva ishanaha idannena atirohadi. So Purusha eva idam sarvam. Idam sarvam Purusha eva. Whatever you find in this world, whatever you interact with in this world is one Purusha. And who is that Purusha? The Purusha is the divine reality that is present in all of us. Purishete iti Purushaha. Many people ask questions in the comment section. The Purishete iti Purusha, it is not part of Purusha Suktam. It is just a statement from one of the well-known commentative literature, commentative works, that's all. One of the canons of Vedic hermeneutics, Vedic interpretative literature. So now, the whole creation, this entire creation is now expressed and explained in the light of the symbolism of a Vedic ritual. So look at the sixth mantra. Yat Purushena Havisha Deva Yajñam Atanvada. Now, and Vasanto Asya Asid Ajyam Grishma Itma Sharat Kavihi. So Sayanacharya says, Yad Devaha Yada Purvokta Kramena Sharireshu Utpanneshu Satsu Uttara Srishti Siddhyartham Bahidravyasya Anutpannatvena Purusha Surupameva Havistvena Sankalpya Purushena Havisha Yajñam Atanvada Purushatmagena Havisha Manasam Yajñam Anvatishtan. This is Sayana. So the point is, in this particular Yajna, all these things are required. And this continues. Yajñam Atanvada Tadanim Asya Vasantaha Ajyam Asid Yajñasya Vasanta Rutureva Ajyam Abhud Ajyitvena Sankalpidavantaha Grishma Itmaha Tameva Idmatvena Sankalpidavantaha Sharat Havihi Tadeva Purodashadi Havistvena Sankalpidavantaha. These are just read the commentary just to do justice the central topic, means the fundamental text. So Sayanacharya's commentary is one of the important texts in the Indian philosophical tradition. So what it means is, as I mentioned, the ritual needs a lot of ingredients. There should be something to be offered. For example, you have to offer either twigs called samit or faggots of firewood. You have to offer many other things like milk or the tea, yogurt or ghee, clarified butter, cooked food, purodasha, some special kind of rice cakes made for offering to this. And now here, ajyam. Ajyam means ghee. What is ajyam? Asya vasantaha ajyam asid. Spring season becomes the ghee. So you can imagine, spring season becomes the ghee, and then Grishma Idmaga. Grishma means summer season. during summer season, trees and firewood all will become dry. So, summer season itself is taken symbolically as firewood that is offered in the fire. And ajyam, ghee, which is produced in large quantities during the spring season, when cows give plenty of milk and people make a lot of ghee, clarified butter. So, spring season becomes ghee. Now, this yajna's symbolism is conceived before creation. So, before creation, there were no cows and there was no firewood. But firewood is to be used for any ritual, Vedic ritual. So, seasons become firewood, ghee, and so on. And also food grains. So, in the symbolism, the Vedic symbolism, Purusha Suktam says, in this ritual, instead of clarified butter, spring season became clarified butter. So that is why, Vasando asya asit ajyam. Vasanta, spring season. And it is very auspicious season. And ghee is supposed to be very auspicious. It is to be offered in the burning fire. So, seasons become different ingredients in this pre-creation Vedic ritual. And again, the summer season, which is characteristic of heat and woods and trees going dry, the summer season becomes faggots or small, tiny twigs of firewoods, which are necessary for starting this yajna fire, homa is called. Again, Sharat Havihi. Sharat is autumnal season. Sharat is autumn season. So, during this season, a lot of food grains grow in the tropical countries, Indian subcontinent. I mean, of course, it has the geographical and historical and cultural context of Indian subcontinent. So, during the autumnal season, it calls Sharat. What happens? Plenty of food grains grow. So, that instead of offering rice pudding or rice cake called purodasha in the old Sanskrit language, in the Vedic language, Sharat season becomes cooked rice and other cooked grains, because that is the season when food grains grow. Summer, which is characteristic of heat, becomes dry twigs needed for starting this fire. And ajyam, you have to offer clarified butter, so ghee is very important for all Vedic rituals. So, spring season becomes clarified butter. So, in this pre-creation symbolism, in the ritual that is taking place before creation, then the creation itself is not conceived to be a Vedic ritual. It's called Prajapati Yajna or Prajapati Yajna, because Prajapati means Prajanampati, the great the great ancestor, the one from whom the whole creation begins. So Purusha himself will become the sacred animal which is to be offered. Now again remember, there is no animal here involved. So what is to be offered? That Purusha. In the next mantra, you can see that description further, you can find. Tam yajnam barhishi praukshan Purusham jadam agrataha tena deva ayajanda sadhyaha rishayaschaye. Now, tam yajnam barhishi praukshan. Again, let us go back to the Vedic symbolism in all these Sapta Haviri Yajnas, Sapta Soma Yajnas, As part of the ritual, there will be many ceremonies. And one of the ceremonies is the Vedic priest the Hota represents the Rigvedic tradition. He will use a tied piece of dry grass. It is called darbha. And with that darbha, he will sprinkle water. It's called prakshanam on all these ingredients which are to be offered. For what? For purification. So the ancient symbolism that is found in many traditions, ancient religious traditions, of invoking some sanctity to a few drops of water and sprinkling that water everywhere as an act of purification, which is part of the Vedic ritual. That is now taken as a symbolism used for describing the entire process of creation. So this mantra says, Ye sadhyaha, sadhya srishti sadhaka yogyaha prajavati pravrudeha rishayascha tadanugula rishayascha mantra dashtaraha santi. So all there are sages who are assembled in the Vedic rituals. So what did they do? They meditated on this cosmic Purusha, this divine reality which has taken the cosmic form. And the ritual of purifying all the ingredients is used in this context. All these sages, Prajapatis, and the great saints and ancient rishis who have realized the truth of meditation, what did they do? They did this prakshana, means purification. And that process is compared to rainfall. So you can imagine, seasons are taken to be different ingredients used for the ritual. So instead of twigs, summer season becomes the samit, the fagots, Grishma Ithma. And then Sharat Kala. Sharat is one of the important seasons, autumnal season, which is characterized by prosperity, a lot of food grains grow. So that particular season is symbolic of the food grains, cooked rice, all these offered in the sacred fire. Again, Vasanta, spring season, it is taken and it becomes the ghee, the clarified butter that is offered in the sacred ritual. So that means the entire cosmos, all the seasons, all the years and months and days, and later you find Chandrama Manaso Jataka, like that you find from that Purusha, moon came out, sun came out, all that you find later on. So how does creation take place? The creation is conceived to be a sacred ritual. Seasons become fagots of twigs used for the yajna, and the seasons become like spring season becomes the clarified butter, and autumnal season becomes symbolic of prosperity, of offering cooked rice, cooked food. So, te agradha jadam purusham sarvasishtehi purvam jadam purushattena utpannam yajna sadhanam pashutta bhavena yupabandham, yupe bandham, this means here. Now, this Purusha, in the ancient Vedic rituals, Vedic sacrifices, sometimes they used to tie one yajna pashu to a pole that is kept that is kept near the yajna-shala, or the place where the ritual is going on. Here, the cosmic Purusha, this divine reality, is itself becoming the sacrificial animal. And then the sacrificial animal is purified. That is Berhishi Praukshan. So it becomes rains. So the priest taking this darbha, this auspicious dry grass, and they dip in water, and the water is sprinkled everywhere as an act of purification to the accompaniment of certain mantras, certain Vedic mantras. This purification, what is it? It is meditation. So, seasons became different ingredients of the ritual. Purusha himself becomes Yajna Pashu, the sacrificial animal, and rains become the water which is used for purifying this Purusha. And what is a purification? Meditation. So that's why Shankaracharya says, Barhishi Praukshan Manasa Yajne Prokshitavantaha. So purified with Manasa Puja. So remember, Manasa Puja is a kind of practice in puja, where the 5 elements themselves become offerings. In the Manasa Puja, it's called Manasa Yagam in the context of Purusha Suktam. From that only Manasa Puja, the idea of the concept of Manasa Puja evolved in modern puja. You find in all the pujas done in temples, important pujas, there is a Manasa Puja. Puja that you do externally, taking flower, taking incense sticks, showing the lamp and incense sticks and flowers and tulasi, bilva, all these sacred things in front of the deity. But in Manasa Puja, all these things become symbolic mental projections. Our own thoughts, our own speculations, our mind, our senses, our five functions of air, all these become different ingredients that you offer in ourselves. So it is called internal, spiritual, meditative practice called Manasa Puja. Its original form is called Manasa Yaga, which is now we are discussing now in Purusha Sukta. So air, Vayu, light, that is Agni, and then space, Akasha, water, Jalam, and Prithvi, earth. These are the 5 elements. These 5 elements become ingredients in the Manasa Puja. And then what is offered to the deity? We offer ourselves. Jivatma offers himself to the deity. And all the 5 elements which are integral functions of the Jiva, they become different objects of offering. But the final offering is ourselves. That is, we have to identify ourselves with the all-pervading, supreme, divine reality that is present everywhere. That is, from this body-mind complex, we should ascend to our higher dimension. We are not just these physical mechanisms that come and go, that are born, live for 100 years, suffering and enjoying, going through all the functions that animals also do, and then finally disappearing, again reappearing. This is the cyclic process. That is Padaha Asya Bhutani, earlier we discussed. From this, we have to travel forward, upward. How do we do that? By practicing this Manasa Yaga. So, when we consider ourselves to be the objects of offering, finally we offer ourselves as Naivedya, become Jivatma. Then we realize our true identity, going beyond the physical, empirical identity, we recognize our true spiritual nature. We are the all-pervading divine spark, divine principle. That idea is symbolically explained here. All these in the light of the symbolism of yajna. So that's why I had to give a picture of the Vedic rituals, 7 yajnas, sapta havir yajna, sapta soma yajna. In all these Vedic rituals, some of them are very elaborate. For example, the Ashwamedha or Adiratra, they are more elaborate. There are also certain rituals that continue for many, many months, but nowadays they are not performed in ancient times. But in all these rituals, there are certain essential ingredients required. Meditation, purification, and again this dry wood, samit, and ajyam, clarified butter, ghee, purodasha, that are cooked rice cakes. All these are necessary for the Vedic ritual. That Vedic ritual is used to explain the entire creation and evolution of the universe, and also the ultimate purpose of human life. It comes to the end. That was the last mantra you find. It was the end that comes in the Yajurveda, Krishna Yajurveda version of Purusha Suktam, which is more elaborate, and Vedahamedam Purusham Mahandam Aditya Varnam Tamasah Parastad Tameva Viditya Adimurti Medi Tas Na Anyapantha Vidyati Ayanaya. That is the conclusion. As a result of this purification, this meditation, I have finally realized that all-pervading divine reality, Adityavarnam Mahantam Purusham Veda, the ancient sage declares. As a result of this meditation, the whole Purusha Sukta is actually a kind of meditation. It's a meditative practice, where every act we do is sometimes compared to a Vedic ritual. All that we do. In fact, in a way, the well-known mantra in the Bhagavad Gita, we call Brahma Yajna mantra. Brahmarpanam Brahmahavi Brahmakno Brahmana Hudam Brahmaivatena Gandavyam Brahma Karma Samadhina. So whatever we are offering, and in that into which we offer, and the one who offers, and the blazing fire into which everything is offered. All these, and the whole the final destination is Brahman only. So that is why Tam Yakyam Barhishi Praukshan. And this purification is done by spiritual disciplines, by performing spiritual disciplines. Barhishi Praukshan. Barhishi actually means in that darbha, in the sacred dry grass. Prakshanam literally means, prakshana kriya actually means purification, the act of purification ceremony, which inherently involves sprinkling sacred water. So water is rain, and different ingredients used for the ritual, the 4 seasons. The other 2 seasons, the pre-winter, all these are included in the Sharath, symbolically. And again, what is offered, like clarified butter, spring season. And our own mind meditating on the supreme reality is actually compared to the act of sprinkling sacred water everywhere. So, in other words, Srishti itself is the effect and the result of yajna. As a result of this meditative practice, we realize our own true nature. We are not the karta and bhokta. We are not psychophysical mechanisms involved in different actions and enjoying the results. We are rather the witness, the transcendental reality. This is the meditative practice involved here. Okay. Now, next mantra is, of course, Tasmad Yajna Sarvakuta Sambhrudam Prishad Ajyam Pashugin Chakre Vayavyan Aranyan Gramyaha Chaye. So these are again a description of different creatures, different animals which came into existence. Later, you also find a very beautiful symbolic description of the emergence, the creation of different types of human beings with different temperaments, how they emerged from different parts of this cosmic Purusha, the cosmic reality. So, eighth mantra is Sarvakutaha. So, Sarvatmakaha Purushaha Yasmin Yajne Huyade Sa Sarvakut Tadrishat. So, from this Purusha, which actually the essence of entire Vedic Yajna, all these things, Tasmad Yajnat, Purvokta Manasa Yajnat. So, Shankaracharya says, it's a Manasa Yajna. From this internal meditative practice. So, this is how creation happened. So, creation is a result of meditation. It's not that God worked very hard to create different animals and human beings. No. God willed, be called Sankalpa. So you can find actually that word is used elsewhere. The word Sankalpa is used here, Actually, Sankalpidavantaha. So you find Ajyam, Yajnasya, Vasanta, Rutireva, Ajyam, Abhud. Ajyitvena, Sankalpidavantaha. Again, Tameva, Idmatvena, Sankalpidavantaha. Tameva, Purodashadi, Havistvena, Sankalpidavantaha. So Sankalpa, what is Sankalpa? Sankalpa is not a voluntary action. Sankalpa involves an act of, let us say, will, but without a deliberate purpose. That is Sankalpa. Because the creation did not take place with a purpose behind. Creation just happened. You can see the God so willed and let there be, that maybe some of these modern over enthusiastic specialists on interfaith religions have superficially interpreted the whole thing. In fact, I tell you, the funny joke, actually, I had to write a kind of rejoinder to a book that is published in one of the Indian vernaculars, where they were an extremely over-enthusiastic evangelical scholar compared this Prajapati Yajna to crucifixion. Of course, people do that, of course, imagination. Certainly, they are wonderful people. They have the freedom to do that. But that is sometimes we do that. We take things from different religions and then we see some common thread. Not actually, we imagine there is a common thread. In fact, there is a common ground for all religions at the spiritual level, not at the level of symbolism. At the level of literature, poetry, symbolism, there may not be much identity. But when we actually practice spiritual disciplines, then we reach a point of experience. At that level of experience, you can see there is a common ground. As Sri Ramakrishna could see the same truth in all religions, but that was a vision from the spiritual perspective, not from the philosophical or ritualistic perspective. Anyway, so that's a different subject. Those who are interested, you can ask this question during interaction. Most welcome. So the point here is, the whole thing is, the whole creation is now is explained as a Sankalpidavanda. All these ritualists, they willed. So Sankalpa, as I mentioned earlier, Sankalpa is not a deliberate action. It comes involuntarily. Something that comes to our mind and it becomes a reality. So in that sense, perhaps, the Purusha Suktam has got a deep symbolic meaning. So now we are coming to the subject. other animals also came into existence. So you can imagine the description. Vayavyan, Aranyan, Pashun. You see, different animals which live in the air, and also different animals like, for example, these cows or deers, which are able to live in this world because there is air. So Vayavyan, Aranya Bhavan. Aranya means those who live, they are born and live in forests. And Gramyan, those who live in villages. So Pashun and Harinadin, I mean deers. Chakre, Ulpadidavan means all these animals also came into existence. Animals that live in forest, that live in villages, and also those who live in air, like birds, they all came into existence. It's a simple description, nothing profound in that. Tatha ye cha gramyaha gavashwadeha. So cows and horses, they're gramyaha, they live in villages. They are not wild, they are animals that live with human beings. Tan api chakre ulpadyavantaha. So this continues. Again, tasma yajna sarvahuda raja samani yajnire chandamsi yajnire tasmat yajus tasmad ajayita. And then later on, of course, other creatures also came into existence. And then what happens? From them, Rigveda came into existence, Yajurveda came into existence, Samaveda came into existence, Atharva Veda came into existence, and also 4 Vedas, and then 6 Vedangas, Shiksha, Kalpam, Vyakarana, Niruktam, Chandasa, Jyotisham, all these came into existence from the same Purusha. So, the whole creation is a meditation, is a meditative process, and in this process, this cosmic creation happened, the phenomenal world, the animals of different types, living creatures of different types, those who live in villages, in forests and air, they all came into existence. And then all the Vedas also came into existence. All the, I already described the 7 important chandas, meters, Anushtup, Gayatri, Brihadi, all that I described. There is no need to describe that. I have already discussed very elaborately. And then 11th mantra continues, Tasmat Ashwa Jayanda Ekecha Ubayadataha Gavoha Jitnire Tasmat Jada Ajavayaka. So then what happened? The description continues. Of course, yeah. That is... Here, of course, Shankaracharya makes a statement at the beginning of the Bhashya. Prasnotra Rubena Brahmanadi Srishtim Vaktum Brahmavadinam Prasnaha. So, great scholars who want to know more, they are putting a question. How did people belonging to different categories, different spiritual and cultural temperaments, how did they come into existence? How were they born? How they were created? That question. So, anticipating this, there is a simple mantra which we need not discuss very elaborately. Yam Purusham Vyadadhu Kadita Vekalpayan Mukham Kimasyahu Bahu Ka Urupada Uchyede. So, this continues, So, this Srishti Yajna, the creation Yajna continues. How to see a vision of the Yajna Purusha, how to visualize the Purusha, and also how from this Purusha, from this cosmic person, this cosmic reality, humanity came into existence, people with different temperaments. For that, Yat Purusham Vyadadhu means we adadhu, means when did they get divided? Katita Vyakalpayan, Vyakalpayan, Mukham Kimasya Kaubahu Kaurupada Uchyede. When this when they meditate upon this Purusha, how many types of different living beings came into existence, and how did they conceive of the different parts of this cosmic Purusha. This again you can remember, it's a wonderful poetical, marvelous poetry. So in that poetry you can find, you should not look at the whole thing as a statement, like a manual that you get when you buy a machine. It will be very clearly described. You press this happens. We should not look upon a great mystical poetry with the empirical perspective. We will be losing much of it. So a question is put forward before one of the famous part of this Purusha Sukta is introduced. So how people from different temperaments came into existence, and from which part of the Purusha all of these came into existence, and in response to that the well-known description begins. So remember, before this I want to mention a few important things. We are now entering a very slightly controversial subject, which people do not understand either the scriptural or spiritual perspective. So as a result of this, a lot of misunderstanding. Brahmanosi mukhamasid bahu rajanyakrudaha uru tadyasya isya vaishyaha padhyam sudro ajayata. This is a well-known verse. Of course, there are slight differences. For example, in Atharva Veda, madhyam tadasya yad vaishyaha. So the third part, the third line could be different in the Atharva Veda. So I shall first read the Anvaya called the prose order. Anvaya tesham prasnanam uttarani darsayati. So the answers are given. Brahmanaha asya mukhamasid prajapadehi mukhad utpannaha rajanya bahu kritaha bahutena nishpaditaha bahubhyam utpaditaha. Tad asya yad uru tadanim prajapadiryo uru astam tayohu vaishya utpanna urubhyam jataha tada asya padbhyam sudra ajayata padbhyam sudra utpanna. So, okay, now here Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, these terms are used here. They do not refer to casteism. They do not refer to any kind of privilege system based on birth. They refer to certain unique human temperaments, human characteristics, which are common in all countries, all societies, all tribes. Everywhere, even within your home, you may find these four groups. Suppose the father may be active. There are in many families some 90-year-old people more active, but maybe a 20-year-old young man may be reading Sermon on the Mount, or maybe meditating. A 90-year-old grandfather will be active, cutting wood and going about. You can find. So where do you draw the line? The son is a Brahmana and father is a Kshatriya. You can say that. Mother may be running a shop in the city. She is a Vaishya. So remember, it is not a description of any kind of privilege system based on birth. Not at all. And I cannot refer a greater authority than Shankaracharya, who is the archetypal custodian of everything that is orthodox and traditional in Hinduism. And as for, I mentioned earlier, actually one of our well-known friends wanted, I gave to one of our friends here what Sister Niveda had to write about Shankaracharya. A greater estimate cannot be written by anybody. And it came from a firebrand Irish lady who was almost a revolutionary in Northern Ireland. So that's the estimate of Shankaracharya. So humane, so philosophical, so spiritual, and such a unique person. And she says, this is a person we can only see from a distance, but can never understand. That's how Sister Niveda writes about Shankaracharya. What does Shankaracharya says about this? So he says, there is well-known verse in the Bhagavad Gita. Chadurvarnim maya sustam guna karma vibhagashaka tasya kartaram abhimam siddhi vidhi akartaram avveyam. So the verse. Chadurvarnim maya sustam guna karma vibhagashaka. Lord Krishna says in the Gita, Chadurvarnya, this concept of dividing humanity into 4 different temperaments, based on their aptitudes, based on their own refinement, their own cultural refinement, based on their own spiritual evolution. It is my work. And tasya kartaram abhimam vidhi akartaram avveyam. It is actually a permanent status quo situation in all societies, in all families, in all countries. And now, what does Shankaracharya say about this? Just listen. Chaduvarnim chatvaraha eva varnaha chaduvarnim maya ishwarena srishtam utpadidam brahmanaha asimukhamasi ityadi sudehe. In fact, Shankaracharya refers to this particular mantra that we are discussing right now. We are discussing brahmanasi mukhamasi bahurajanyakೃತಃ. That well-known mantra in the 90th Suktam of Rigveda, 10th mandala. That's what Shankaracharya is referring to. The same subject we are discussing now, Shankaracharya is referring. And you will remember he was not an ultra-modern liberal person. He was the champion of all that is orthodox and traditional Hinduism. What does he say? Guna karma vibhagasha karma vibhagascha gunaha sattva-rajas tamamsi. So the whole thing is a matter of dividing, analyzing, studying humanity based on their natural characteristics and also how those characteristics express themselves in their actions. So these are 2 important criteria. One, the natural temperament and characteristics and how that temperament expresses itself in their actions. And he says, Tatra satvikasya sattva-pradhanasya brahmanasya shamo dhamma tapa ityadini karmani. So who is a brahmana? Brahmana is a person who has got all these qualities. Self-restraint, self-control, maturity, all these qualities. Patience, a natural aptitude towards spiritual, philosophical, contemplative activities. That is Sattva-guna. So such a person in whom these characteristics are predominant is a Brahmana. That's the idea behind. So, it's a very, now you can imagine, of course this is more of a matter of political and sociological controversies which I don't want to discuss. So how a great idea which is being described in the ancient Vedic tradition is hijacked and misunderstood and misinterpreted. It's common in every family, in every culture, every society you can find. There are people who are contemplative by nature. Given a chance, given an opportunity, they will rather read something, contemplate and meditate. Not too many, but a small number of people will be endowed with a dominant sattvic temperament. In all religions, in all societies, in all countries, in all families you find. Even San Francisco city also you find. A small tiny percentage, maybe 0.0002% or 3% will be contemplative by nature, meditative, self-restraint, self-control. Mind is always kept in a state of even-mindedness. That's all. Tatra satvikasya sattva-pradhanasya brahmanasya shamo dhamma tapa ityadini karmani. That's it. Then, what about the next category? Kshatriya. Mostly, it's active people. Sattva-upasarjana raja-pradhanasya kshatriyasya shaurya-teja prabudini karmani. Okay. Second category. There are those who have got more of let's say Rajoguna, they are very active. Very active. But they have got Sattva-guna because they may have justice and fair play. They may have sense of moderation, sense of propriety, but they won't be spending a lot of time in meditation. So they will be called Kshatriyas. So they are not bad, they are also good people, but they were given a chance, they would rather do something with their body and mind, something that will help them to become dominant in society and country. There more dynamism, more activism you find. So they have got Sattva Guna, only a small percentage, but mostly they have got Raja Guna, more active. This idea behind. And then of course, so the discussion continues. Again, then there are those who have got a lot of Rajoguna, very active, very dynamic, very efficient, and at the same time they may not have much Sattva Guna, but certainly they have got some Tamo Guna. So there are a lot of Rajoguna, very active business people, traders, farmers, they are very good people, but you ask them, you go and meditate, they will tell it's a waste of time. They would rather spend their time in things spiritual. So it's not that anybody is bad or anybody is good, not at all. Anybody is superior or anybody is inferior. What it means is, this is what you find in human temperament, human society. It's a very, very, very profound, very natural, very rational analysis of the human nature. And also in his commentary, Shankaracharya says, every person should try to increase more and more the Sattva Guna. A person who is very lazy, he should try to become active. And when he becomes active, then he should remember, well, action is good, but that's not enough. You also need a brake, not just accelerator. So, for that you need some Sattva Guna. That's needed. So every person can take an ascent and climb up the ladder, go higher and higher in their own evolution of their temperaments. So this is what we find in human society. That's the theme we are going to discuss in the coming session. It's a well-known verse, well-known mantra. Unfortunately, most people who criticize this part of the Purusha Sukta, they don't know Sanskrit, or they don't want to know Sanskrit, and of course they don't read the original text. Of course, it's a matter of sociological and political controversy. It's not philosophical or scriptural, but it's a very wonderful analysis of human society. And also there is a straight path laid out before us. All of us can increase our meditative temperament, contemplative temperament, or aptitude for higher thought, philosophy, contemplation. We can do that, and we should do that. It doesn't mean that we should become lazy or inactive. Along with action, we should also realize that action is not enough. Action can give us success in material life. That is necessary, that is important, but that's not enough. There should be something more than that. For that, Sattva Guna is needed. This idea behind. We'll discuss in the next session. Most welcome. You are most welcome to ask questions. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Swami.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, you mentioned the 5 elements.
Yeah.
And I was curious about, in Shankya, and I think Advaita accepts it too, the 24 cosmic principles, and includes the 5 elements. Is that something that Kapila made up, or does he get that, from the 5 elements, or is that something that's stated in the scripture, like the Vedas or the Upanishads?
In Vedas, of course, there are references to the 5 elements. In fact, there is a Prithvi Suktam. In Prithvi, there is a whole hymn dedicated to earth. In fact, a lot of ideas of conservation of air and water and environment, all you find in that well-known. It's Rigveda Samhita itself. So, all these ideas are found in Vedas in a scattered form. From that, Kapila must have developed as an integrated philosophical system. So, there's no doubt about it that because Kapila's Sankhya system is one of those philosophical systems which accept Vedas as an important, testimony, as an important authority. It's called Astika Darsana, theistic systems. So naturally, Kapila must have developed this from Vedic sources. Yeah.
So the Tanmatras, though, all that was his. Those were all his ideas, but the only part he got from the Vedas were the five elements, or did he get?
Yeah, Tanmatras also are mentioned in many Veda mantras. Tanmatra,
okay.
The subtle original forms from which these five elements, Bhutas, emerged. They're the causal dimension, causal forms of five elements. So that also are implied in Vedic literature. You often find, in fact, Akashat, Vayu, Ragni, Aktera, Bhabhi, Prithvi, Prithvi, Moshe, Deka, Oshadhi, Annam. So this is from, it is from Krishna Yajurveda Taittiriya Upanishad. From Atma, Atmanaha Akashat, Akasha Sambhudaka, Akashat Vayu. From Atman, space emerged. From space, air principle. From air principle, fire principle, Vayu, Ragni. And from Agnerabhaka, from fire principle, the water principle. And from that, Prithvi, matter. So it's actually from Krishna Yajurveda. Right, yes. Yeah. Right. Taittiriya Upanishad,
Yeah, I would like to request you to shed some more light on your comment that the Sankalpa is not a deliberate act. I thought normally we do Sankalpa before a puja or a yajna or any japa, stating what the purpose is. So it appears to be with a specific goal. I was confused by your comment that it's not a deliberate act.
Yeah. Sankalpa, Sankalpa used in Purusha Sukta is an involuntary process, but Sankalpa is done as a spiritual discipline in Sandhya Vandana and elsewhere in puja and worship. It is a deliberate, it's a part of the ritual, one of the elements of ritual. Sankalpa is the beginning of puja, You have to do Sankalpa, but for what purpose you are doing puja, with what purpose, so you are who is doing it, on which day, all this is part of Sankalpa mantra. So there's a voluntary action, deliberate ritual, but Sankalpa in the Purusha Sukta context, it is involuntary Sankalpa.
So you're saying Sankalpa by the Paramatman, the whole yajna, why he did offer himself, you're saying that is not a deliberate. Okay, I got it. So.
Vedic symbolism is employed here to describe creation. So when you describe creation, God, Paramatman, Purusha did not have a definite purpose for creating this world, because if God had a purpose in creating this world, there was a problem with him because he wanted to do something. If he had wanted to do something, he must have been imperfect. If you want to do something, it means you don't have it right now. So you are in need of it, so you are not perfect. That's why creation itself is called a Leela. A Leela means sport. In the evening you go for a walk. You may say it's for exercise, but suppose you go for a walk just for walking. There is no purpose behind. So it just happens. That is the highest description of creation. In fact, it is Lokavattu Leela Kaivalyam Brahma Sutra is the Badrayana Sutra. So, creation can be ultimately explained only as a purposeless act of sport, not a deliberate action. That is why creation, Srishti in the Purusha Sukta context is called Te sankalpitavantaha. They did sankalpa. That's Shankaracharya writes, uses that term. This idea.
Yes.
But remember, don't mix that sankalpa with the sankalpa which is an important part of puja. That sankalpa is different. This sankalpa is different.
Maharaj,
No.
you mentioned the dangers of matching in comparative religion or in this interfaith analysis, the dangers of syncretism, trying to match
True.
between one tradition and another.
Yeah.
And of course, we're going to notice comparisons, but to really understand the authenticity of what you're describing, which is participating in the creative act, we have to let go of that.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
True. Yeah. Syncretism is dangerous because it can explode any moment. So, in a very casual, superficial way, if you say religion is the same, it is not correct. But at the same time, one can say every religion, when properly and sincerely practiced, can lead to the same goal, which is an experience, not a conviction. So, a sincere person, whatever religion he may belong to, or he may not have any religion, Buddha did not believe in God as such, actually. But so, that person can certainly realize the divine. That's what Vedanta says. So, only from the highest experience point of view, we can think of all religious traditions as identical. Only from the highest experience point of view. I often use this word as a comparison, as a metaphor. Suppose you are trying to climb a hill and you are following a track or a trail. Nobody is taking that trail. You alone. You don't see anyone else. So you may think, this is the only road that can take me to the top of the hill. Because you don't see anyone. You are not able to see any other trails, any other roads leading to the top of the hill. You look around, nothing. But when you reach the top, suddenly when you look around, you find there are thousands of other trails that people are taking from different directions. And they all will take you, ultimately, if you travel long enough, if you persist long enough, to the top of the hill. That is experience. So from the top of the hill, when you look downward, you find all roads lead to the same goal. But you don't realize this before you reach the top of the hill. You don't see other trails, other roads when you are following your own track. So that's the main thing. The philosophical level, dogma level, the ritualistic level, there cannot be real identity. At the spiritual level, and that which actually transforms a human being to a higher person, then you can connect with the spiritual, with the universal, with the transcendental that you find in all religions. It's a natural urge to go for the transcendental, look for the transcendental, look for the higher in all traditions. So that's important. Thank you. Thank you for the question. Very interesting.
Yes, Maharaj. Yes, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Pranam, Maharaj. I know this is a little bit off the subject, but I was wondering if you could speak a little bit about the significance of the Vedic wedding ceremony.
Wedding ceremony, yeah, but of course I can. You find in the 10th mandala there are mantras which are normally uttered by people who perform this, Grihnamiti Saubhagatvaya Hastam. This mantra begins, which actually involves. But anyway, it is in Vedic scheme. Marriage is a pilgrimage, both husband and wife, reaching towards the same, going in search of the same goal. That's called Saka Dharmini, it is called. So you find in our Puranas and elsewhere, you find the good meritorious deeds done by the husband will benefit the wife, and good deeds and meritorious deeds done by the wife will benefit the husband. So it is actually mutual, is a harmonious pilgrimage in search of higher goal. It is In fact, the Veda, this Vivaha Suktam is a very important, well-known Suktam in the Rig Veda, which which are not very relevant for our context, but it lays before you a very grand, a great, and a highly spiritual concept of living married life. There's a very sublime concept you find. I can give an example of just to remind you. Once some American ladies, and maybe I think Sister Nivedha also was present. She was an Irish Catholic. She visited Belur, India, and she met Holy Mother, Sri Sharada Devi. And then, they couldn't speak each other's language because mother could only speak in Bengali and these European or American ladies only spoke English. So, but still somehow they contacted. But mother asked them to describe their wedding practice or rituals, whatever it is. I think that lady who mother asked was a Catholic. And she described, and mother, she was wonderful. Mother appreciated, praised that concept of marriage in Catholic tradition. You can find in Holy Mother's life. So, mother was overjoyed to hear something so great in alien tradition, which she never knew before that. So, can you imagine? So, this you find in Holy Mother's life. So there are higher ideas. Vedas are very profound. Vedas have a very profound concept of married life, the idealistic married life. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Namaste Swamiji. I have a question about this idea of Leela because as a science student, I find it very intriguing and interesting because it's kind of, in science we learn nowadays that a lot of events are purely random or stochastic, as they call it. So, and this idea of Leela has occurred to me that it is somewhat resonating with that. So, my question is, where is the first time this idea of Leela appearing? Is it in Vedas or is it in some, after that, where do we see this idea of Leela first time? Right.
Of course, this is a Vedantic perspective, Advaitic perspective. From Advaitic perspective, this world is not absolutely real. Because in Vedanta or Advaita Vedanta, anything that is to be called absolutely real, Paramarthika Satta, should exist without any change in the past, present and future. Without any change, it should remain the same in the past, present and future. Called Shadvikara Atida Trikala Abadhita means not affected by the changes in the past, present and future. Now this world in which we are living, the entire cosmos universe, doesn't qualify for the status of absolute reality from that criterion. It changes all the time. Maybe Earth will be different after a few millions of years, it will be different. Several billions of years ago, it must have been different. So the point is, anything that changes is not absolutely unreal because we interact with this world. We interact with the world. So it is not absolutely unreal, but because it changes, it is not absolutely real either. It's called mithya or maya. There's a real meaning of it. So how do you explain this world then? So it is explained in the light of a magician playing a magic in the presence of a king. That is a very wonderful graphic description in the Mandukya Karya Bhashya by Shankaracharya. That is a very famous passage. So a magician comes to a king's court and he starts playing his magic. And suddenly, these onlookers, they are deluded into thinking that somebody is calling the magician to go to heaven and there's a war going on between the demons, devas and asuras, and then he has to go and assist the devas in their war against demons. All that, all magic, just delusion. And then a lot of fighting going on, they hear a lot of noise They are terrified, and after some time, everything disappears. The magician is standing there. Bhumishto tishtadiva, Bhashyara says. He's standing there as a witness, not without anything. But no, you cannot say that magic was unreal, because for a few minutes, at least, they thought those things were happening. But before the magician came, those things were not happening. And after some time, when the magician actually, when all this magic stopped, then also it was not happening. But in between it was happening. So what does it mean? Not absolutely unreal, but not real in the true sense. A pot is not absolutely real, because a pot was clay before the pot maker made a pot. And if you break it, it goes back to clay. A goldsmith makes a necklace. It was something else before he made a necklace. And if you melt it again, it becomes something else. But again, you cannot say the pot is unreal in the absolute sense, because you store water in the pot, you use it for your domestic purposes, you wear a necklace on your neck, you can't say it is unreal, but then it's not real in the absolute sense, because it becomes something else after some time. So, something that remains for some time and then becomes something else is neither absolutely real nor absolutely unreal. Then how do you explain this empirical world? Only as a play. The magician was just playing actually. Because he was playing, you cannot say it is absolutely unreal. See, if you go to Disneyland or Disney, these places, 3 hours you pay $100, 3 hours you see all these things happening. For 3 hours, if you believe it's all unreal, then you are wasting $100. For 3 hours, when you are within the hall, you think all these things are real, what you are seeing in the Disneyland. Because at that time, a movie also. When you are seeing the movie, at least for 3 hours, good movie I'm talking about, that can really absorb you, a good movie, it is not absolutely unreal, because it is happening. For 3 hours it was real, as if it was real. As if it were real. That's a real description of Jagat. So remember, it's a great misunderstanding. Shankara, Vedanta say the world is unreal. I am not here, you are not here, the mic system is not here. No, Vedanta doesn't say that. Vedanta only tells you the mic system will not be here after 1 billion years. That's all. That's what it says. It is not eternal in the absolute sense. So then what status do you give to this world? It is really not unreal in the absolute sense, not real in the absolute sense. It is a play. It is Logavattu Leela Kaivalyam. That is the Badrayana Sutra, Brahma Sutras.
So this Leela is there in Upanishads also, but in the Upanishads, have they described the word, used the word Leela and described it?
Upanishads use the word Leela, but Upanishads do not become a compact philosophical system before Shankaracharya emerged. Upanishads become a compact philosophical system only with Shankaracharya's commentaries. The first commentary on the Vedic literature in a philosophical perspective. So there are, of course, there are many passages where it is implied, it's clearly stated, but becomes a definite philosophical, a compact philosophical system only in 8th century AD. That's the idea behind. Thank you.
Maharaj, on that very subject, before David's question, there's a question on YouTube about Leela and the whether there's any order in the creation myth, in the creation story, any details in the Vedas besides Leela.
Well, there are many passages of creation.
On the sequence of creation.
Yeah. Taittiriya Upanishad has got a lot of passages. The Srishtu Tadeva Anupravishat Tadanupravishat Satsatyecha Bhavat. That's also a brief equivalent of the Genesis you find. But God, there it says Sattapo Atapyada, and God, you can say Brahman, did tapasya, then after tapas, then the world was created, And after creating this world, Brahman or Atman entered in itself, it became one with it. The creator becoming one with the creation, which literally means there is no real creation apart from the creator. So creation and creator are the same. This idea makes absolutely no sense in the Abrahamic tradition or any non-Advaitic traditions. In the Advaitic tradition alone, it makes sense, because the clay and the clay pot are really the same. The gold, the golden necklace, and you melt it, you become something else, golden ring, they are the same. So, the point is, non-Advaitic philosophers bringing the idea of vyavahara buddhi, means practical utility. You cannot store water in a pile of clay. The clay should become a pot, then only you can store water in it. So there is a practical utility. Practical utility doesn't give it a different or independent ontological status. Practical utility doesn't give clay pot and clay independent status in terms of ontological reality. That's the idea behind.
Swami, I just had a further question along the lines of Leela.
Yeah.
Can it be said that Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother are an incarnation of that God entity that began this creation?
Yeah.
This Leela?
Yeah, Avatara concept is fully understood in Vedanta. Avataras are special manifestations of highly elevated divine personalities who come from time to time. That's the only concept we can think of it. Swamiji compares to big waves in the ocean, big waves in the ocean. Personally, big waves are part of the ocean, but big waves are certainly different when you see them. 100 meter tsunami is different from the water for an ocean, which is calm and quiet, different. But still, you cannot say the waves have a status independent of the ocean. But they are not identical, again, at the empirical level. But they are not different at the absolute level. The same water constitutes the 100 meters wave. But then, at the same time, they're different. So, Avadara idea can be fully accommodated within the Advaita system. This is an important thing. Swami Vivekananda, he makes a famous statement. The difference between an amoeba and a Buddha is one of degrees and not of kind. An amoeba, the manifestation of the divine within, is very feeble, very little. But in a Buddha, when he used the word Buddha, we are not sure whether Swamiji was talking about Gautama Buddha or the Buddha in Sanskrit means the enlightened one. So the difference between an enlightened spiritual person and an amoeba is not one of kind, but one of degrees. If it's a difference of kind, then that should be eternally different. No. Amoeba also can evolve, maybe billions of years it may take, and can become a Buddha, first human being. Then he may also, you find, in fact, how do you explain different people, different temperaments in the same family? How do you explain this diversity? So there are certainly many instances where the same family, 5 children, went to the same school, same environment, but 5 different temperaments. So it's one of degrees, not of kind. That's the idea behind it. A Buddha and an amoeba. That's a very powerful statement which explains the whole gamut of evolutionary process at a spiritual level.
Swami, will you, as part of this series, be talking more about the concept of Avatara, Leela, and Advaita?
Certainly, I have plans to take a Bhagavata Purana because it's one of the most important devotional classical works, very unique work. It is full of Vedanta, full of philosophy, and full of devotion. It's a very profound book. And also, certainly, we'll be discussing that. I think it is a very long process. I was telling one of our friends that we have whole Mahabharata with me, so we have at least 5,000 lectures titles we can have for Mahabharata. Okay, I won't inflict all of them on you, but I was getting a joke like that recently. Okay.
So this particular class is going to go on for another 20 years? Is that what you're...
No.
At least.
This may not last long because the Purusha Suktam is one of the most important parts of our Vedantic literature. This idea behind. And somebody requested, that's why he started this. Okay? Yeah. Thank you so much for your enthusiasm.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.